Hi, this is Brian Brady. I am the president of Youth Engage, and this is the Youth Engage podcast and videocast. You can subscribe on YouTube and sign up to get these interviews. We have two amazing people today. I am so excited to interview. They're both former students of mine, but they're now very successful entrepreneurs. One on the nonprofit side, Dion Dawson with Dion Chicago Dream, and one on the for-profit side, Griffin Directions, who does black luxury interior design, both commercial and residential design. I'm really lucky to know these fabulous leaders. And the topic today really was inspired out of a Wall Street Journal article about the lost boys in education. And the article talked about how college going rates for young men across all races has dropped, and colleges are now 60% women and 40% men. And I think we could also talk about incarceration rates and things like that, stipulating that we still have a patriarchy in this society, and white males still control business, politics, academia, et cetera. So not denying that, but underneath at the other levels of society, it seems like a lot of boys of all races are getting a little bit lost in the shuffle in school and society. So we're going to talk to two successful men in their 30s about their journey, how they got successful, and then pivot and get their insights on how our educational system should serve young men better. So I'm going to start with Dion. Dion, great to have you here. You just started a nonprofit a year and a half ago that's going gangbusters. You were on Ellen's show a couple months ago. Tell us about Dion Chicago Dream and you're addressing food scarcity issues in Englewood.
Definitely. Dion Chicago Dream is fighting food insecurity, but the way that we're doing it is anything but the status quo. So me growing up, as you know, me growing up with the limited resources out of Englewood and standing in those long lines trying to get food and seeing my mom struggle and seeing my family struggle to graduating high school and then going off to the military, learning about public relations, learning about communications, learning about journalism, and just becoming a man myself. I wanted to always come back and figure out how can I help my community. And so upon coming back, I mean, it was a crazy transition, but I still saw a lot of those issues that plagued my childhood. And then when, I started getting deeper and closer to those issues, I saw that it was a lack of, innovation, a lack of ingenuity, a lack of asking, why are we doing this? And so what started off as someone asking me, what am I going to do for my community on Juneteenth last year? And by the way, we fed 100 families. It was logistically the most difficult day of my life, but it was the most pleasing. I was exhausted, but it meant the world to me. And a lot of people don't know that after that event, I was actually approached with a chance to get $30,000 in funding, but I wasn't a organization. I wasn't a 501c3, and it killed me. It killed me. I felt like I let my community down because that money couldn't go to my community. And so that was just the major fork in the road. And I said, I talked to my wife, Crystal, and I said, I'm going to go for it. And by it, I had no idea what it was. But I think that's the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship, you know what I mean, is that it can be whatever you want. And so I think the beautiful thing in my journey and my organization's journey is that I wasn't glued to a template because I was anything but that. I was never somebody that was supposed to do this. After I got out of boot camp and I left my training at Fort Meade, Maryland, most first-time sailors go to a ship. So when they asked me where did I want to go on my wish list, no lie, on 3 lines, I put any ship in Norfolk because I didn't want to go to a ship, but that was me accepting it. And I ended up going to the President's Hospital, and I was stationed at Walter Reed doing public relations. And that's where I really learned how to communicate effectively. I learned high-level communications, community outreach, journalism. And so with my organization starting it, I decided after Juneteenth last year, every single day I'm just gonna start getting up and learning. So I would get up at 3 or 4 a.m. every single day from July 3rd till about September, and put in the didn't have any money, started a GoFundMe, and with that money, we were able to get incorporated August 10th, and just still learning and tweaking. And in the meantime, got our 501c3 designation, got an accounting firm, did all of the things that from the outside looking into philanthropy, legally, what do I have to do to make sure that we're positioned well? And then from there, I tell my accounting firm, I tell my board, I tell my team, if it's not illegal and it's not immoral, then it's on the table. And so it allows me to have the nonprofit sector be my wheelhouse. And everybody is doing stuff in food because everybody else does it. But our way is, we look at Inglewood, which is a food desert. We look at other food deserts around Chicago, and we look at food insecurity response as a whole. And I just said, okay, it has to be fresh. As a Black leader, I have to make sure that I'm cognizant of the intended perception and the unintended perception. And so I said, okay, cool. We can have a community fridge, but am I going to pat myself on the back for having a community fridge, or are we going to fill that fridge? You know what I mean? And if we're going to fill that fridge, what are we going to fill it with? Because we're in a food desert. And so we have our community fridge. We stock it every single day with fresh fruits and vegetables, which allows us to be in the community in a qualitative manner, so we can pick up on what's current and what's going on with our residents. And then from there, I just said, okay, if we're solving the food insecurity problem, if we're meeting it where it is now, what do we see the future as? And the future is dream deliveries. And so what dream deliveries is for us is just like HelloFresh, but it's merging in the logistics involved with Amazon. So we have a 8 to 10 pound direct to consumer box of fresh fruits and vegetables that we buy. And so as an organization, we don't offer anything donated because we want our residents, because most of these food deserts we know are in communities of color. And so if we know that it's a food desert in a marginalized community of color, then we want them to understand that they deserve more than imperfect produce, that unintended consequences. So from there, right now we're providing about 2,000 pounds of brand new fruits and vegetables across the city. My delivery crew is paid. Our deliveries are tracked. In a capitalist society, you can't, stand an organization up on volunteerism. You're only going to be providing the residents. And so I'm making sure that they're paid. We own our delivery vehicles. We own our produce. And so now in our logistical picture, we have a say-so in what we do. And every week we're delivering in Evanston, Schiller Park, Melrose Park, Maywood, Inglewood, West Lawn, back of the yards, and Chatham. So
I love it. You grew up in Englewood, and I think what I see in your work is that you cut through the mess and got right to a real solution, that no one had, just cut out a lot of the middlemen and just let's get right to fresh produce for people who need it. Let's pivot to Griffin for a second, because Griffin, I know you, and I want that idea of waking up early in the morning and self-educating. Knowing your life story a bit, I see some connections there with how you got started in your own business. There's a lot of self-education. And tell us about your business and how you got into it. You're on mute.
There we go. Hi, y'all. Thank you, man. Dion, that's a beautiful story. And I love to see it working right now. What I will say is that through my journey coming up, I was an inner city Black kid who was one of the statistics. So I had a single parent in the house, underfunded public school systems, but I joined the policy debate team in high school. And what that did was, yes, taught me how to argue, but it gave me time to have qualitative research and understand the context to which the words, phrases, and meanings and how they impact and can make something positive for you or negative, depending on how you use it. And so my journey into entrepreneurship was simply, I had an eye-awakening experience as I'm reading Michel Foucault and debating it for 60 minutes as a freshman in high school, as we're doing action civics with, organizations with Brian. I understood that what was going to be required of me was not always going to be taught in the manner that I needed to digest it. And I think that's probably where a lot of us are similar, where we're all different. And so when you have a creative kid or something like that who's coming up, trying to get me to obey or fit into rigid structures without proper communicating and context, it told me that I never even wanted to fill out a FAFSA. However, social norms and things taught me that it was important to do so and to socially appear to be a certain way, because the paradigm for success that I had was truncated by emotional disturbances and things that happen in ghettos and cities and major metropolises like Chicago. So I never went to college, never intended to. And I knew that I could self-educate myself. And so that's what I did. My mom, unfortunately, had a brain aneurysm at 19, when I was 19, and she was 34. And so with brain injuries and things of that nature, I was an advanced young person. One of the things about being a young POC is that we have overly developed or more proactive emotional awareness and self-awareness than other kids, because we're exposed to things before it's time, even if these are good things, like our talents and gifts. And so because there's not a huge emphasis on the management of these type of things, they can sometimes be abused and misused, and slows down the process that's necessary for successful and healthy living, which is where Dion is talking about with organic versus processed. So with my mom having this aneurysm and me understanding that a 9-to-5 job where my time was valued at the time, I think it was $8.15 was the minimum wage, and I was only a high school graduate, something else had to happen. And so that's when I had definitely had people in my life, individuals, organizations that did nurture my emotional intelligence, as well as school, which was nurturing, and debate, which was nurturing my actual, my intellect. And so I started to renovate this home, and it was a foreclosed home that a friend had moved out of, but the nursing homes were so bad that I was just like, I know I can do better. And if I don't know,
you're caring for your mom, right? And
yeah.
home, right?
Yep.
So I brought her home. I'm an only child on both sides. And so I brought her home. I read, I studied, I got certified in critical care nursing, respiratory therapy, wound management. Got this house, didn't even have a fridge in it or a microwave, but my mom had what she needed. And I was like, I'll figure it out. I'm one of those. And so I started to renovate this home because I was there all the time, all day long. So I was YouTubing, figuring out hanging drywall, putting the light fixtures up, staining floors, and because I had to be there 24 hours. And so eventually when my mom passed, I had a memorial at the home after we were there for maybe another good 6 years before she passed away after the initial injury. And I had the memorial at the home. And so many people came that were friends, and they were amazed that this is where I had been, living all the time on the south side of Chicago. And from there, I went on to, they asked me, hey, would you like to come and design for us, interior design, or design our church? This church was a mega church. And so I took it, used the skill sets that I had, generated it, and that became one of my income streams. But my success, I think, is a lot broader than just my success in finances. That's one part, and that's cool. But yeah, interior design, I design spaces now for people and for places, because I've had a lot of different various experiences up and down the success ladder. I've made a lot of mistakes, burnt a lot of bridges. So I think I got it now. And so that's what I do. And yeah.
You guys both did Mikva challenge too, I know, in high school and
Definitely.
your curriculum. And I was thinking I have a lawnmower out here, so I got to get my question in before it goes off again. Is, starting with assets first and support systems. Dion, you talked about your wife. Griffin, I know I've heard your podcast about you connected to a Latino church at one point that gave you a lot of emotional support. What have been, you guys have overcome immense things in your life and just societal racism and injustice and inequity. But what have been these key supports that have kept you going throughout your time?
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, for me, yeah. So that first church that gave me my first big opportunity was that Latino church. I redesigned it, did a full remodel, and just applied what I did know towards it. So emotionally, the development process is something that is a process. And I think that a lot of adults don't clarify or use communication language that we as youth can understand, that you are just an older imperfect person and we're young imperfect people. And so we're similar in that sense, irregardless of injustices, races, in color and creed, on the very bare genesis, we're human beings. And because of that, you're figuring it out and I'm figuring it out. However, the emotional management allows me to be able to ask you a question in confidence and know that you've had and done the work that's necessary at your age, which hopefully you've grown to at whatever age you are as an adult. When we ask you questions, for you to answer with not only your intellect, but also your emotional convictions and motives. And if the adults who try to teach, train, or lead us do not consider that, or do not do the work within themselves, within their character, within their motives as to why they're doing it, and have a balance, you couldn't have helped me manage it anyway. And I'm grateful that a lot of people didn't.
Definitely. I think that's such a crazy amount of overlap in, both of our approaches. It immediately, takes me back to my favorite quote that I kind of kept with me as I started, was a J. Cole lyric where he says, I'm just a man of the people, not above, but equal. And for the greater good, I'll walk amongst the evil. And it always stood out to me because it's about humility. And, both of us coming from Mikva, I think the thing that Mikva had, especially when, the first few generations, you know what I mean? It came from a place of respecting when respect wasn't the norm. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Mikva never ever assumed that they were the subject matter experts. The only thing we accepted it was an environment that allowed us to be us. It allowed us to go through. And so, for me, I didn't even, realize the similarities in not only Mikva's approach, but even in my approach from what I learned from Mikva. It's about, having, like Griffin talked about, that questioning attitude, having that understanding that nobody is greater than or less than. Yeah. And so our ability to have, sustainability is because, we respect not only the people, but we respect the process. And I think that, it has to come from a grounded level. You know what I mean? And I think that's why, I love being in the community. You know what I mean? And, when Brian was talking about your travel, Griffin, his face lit up. You could tell when Brian loves something, you know what I mean? It's on his face. And so, but that is that thing that allows you to do of what you're doing, is that you go here, you do this, and it feels different. And so when it comes to working with youth or being a youth, it has to be a mutual respect there. And for me, I have to meet people where they are, because for so long in business and for so long in philanthropy, being a good person or being a good steward became less and less popular. You know what I mean? And so if we see this, that there's a void there, and we know that we already had to jump over and hurdle systemic racism and, family trauma and neighborhood trauma and neighborhood neglect and, inequality and lacking, equity to get where we are, then who are we if we don't turn around and create a better setting for those coming after us? And so I think that this generation, the only thing I think that not the only thing, but one of the true markers for our success is we not only pass the eye test, but when you actually look, there's actually substance there. There's quality there, and we're not peddling to the lowest demographic just to say we're successful. You know what I mean? Like when he said burning bridges, you know what I mean? Like being an entrepreneur is not easy. You know what I mean? Being successful is not easy. But Elon Musk, said it best when he said, what college you went to didn't matter. The information is out there. And so who are we to say we're entrepreneurs if we're not learning while we're, applying? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just have to laugh that you guys get to see my whole house. And Griffin, now you can help me design it better. But I'm running away from a lawnmower. No more interviews at 10:30 on
we
Friday.
can't really hear it. We really can't hear it. So at all. So
I'm on mute,
but
because I put it on mute.
Okay. Smart.
I finally found the kitchen is the quiet spot. So Griffin, I'm ready for your interior design. Although you do black luxury design, and this is white, very middle class design.
No. So I'm black. I do luxury, and I'm a designer, and I'm one of, and that's the first part. But what I like to tell a lot of people is that luxury is black. Because when you think about the tenacity and the quality of what it has to be in order for it to be extremely expensive, the multifacetedness that I've discovered within myself and other POC is kind of similar to what goes into the hours and the labors to make a Hermes Birkin bag. When you look at sort of the context or even a restoration hardware chandelier, the man hours that goes into forging those individual pieces and articulations that really function and is considered luxury. Not only did we do it, we've done it in a lot of different aspects. And so I like to be very clear that I understand what luxury is and why we call something luxury, even from its origin. And then the design is simply an interdependent agency of multiple people who have multiple perspectives, who have multiple experiences. And we try to all come together, or we do all come together to make a design for whomever. Like, we just want you to feel good also, not just look good.
Listen, I mean, I so admire you both just because you refuse to let your creativity get suppressed by this society. And you're both doing immensely creative work. I have to confess, I don't see as many kids who are creative persevering as well as you have. And so the big question I want to get your thoughts on is how do we nurture kids to honor that creative self that you both do so well? And also, I mean, you both have unusual perseverance and tenacity too. But how can our school systems and a lot of what I'm hearing is outside of school is where you are more nurtured, that side of you is more nurtured and supported. But how can inside the school day, in the classrooms, what should we be doing differently to help young Griffins and Dions succeed?
Well, I think the thing about that perseverance is that, and it almost pains me to say, but I'm pretty sure that Griffin can relate. But as a Black man, we're not afforded the luxury to live in the moment. You know what I mean? A lot of our community either is plagued by past traumas, or they're scared of they're worried about the future. And so this creativity it shines when, as a person, not an age group, as a person, you can live in whatever moment you're in. And for me, I noticed that while I was in Mikva, is that I was homeless all through Mikva. You know what I mean? Every day I was homeless. But that creativity and that sense of self and learning who you are and believing in yourself comes when you can go in an environment, and even for a temporary moment, you can be in that moment. And for me, that was the thing about Mikva. And unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of waiting on schools. It takes too long. You know what I mean? And so as much as this is about how can schools, reflect and learn from past mistakes, it's just something that is a process that's so bloated, that is so elongated, that it's about building up that person wherever they are, either in school or out of school. You know what I mean? And so we have to focus. I think for me, I unlocked my true potential, for my organization, when I focused on the end user experience. I don't focus on, everything. I focus on what is the impact at the person's, the recipient's level. And so when we're thinking about a student, what is the experience for the student? And it doesn't have to be complicated, because if we go to it with no expectation but to learn, then every day you get excited from the possibilities that can occur. And so looking at each student, and I'm not trying to talk too long, Griffin, please just get me with the church figure.
Nah, listen. I can listen. Feel free. Go ahead.
But I think that I have a responsibility as a steward of Inglewood also, in that, showing these white-led, grant making orgs that look at a black-led org and scoff at the idea of giving them $250,000. And so I said, no. I said, I go from every room I enter, I go in, luckily, with the chance to just be in that moment. And I think with schools and and outside of school, if these kids can just be in the moment, you know what I mean? There were days leaving school, me and my friends got shot at and jumped and going home and not having anything to eat and eating croutons for 3 days. And the only time I ate some days was at Mikva. And so, it can't just be about the system. It has to be about the person. Because regardless of the words you use to explain it, when somebody does not feel valued, they cannot begin to unlock their true potential, period.
Human-centered design, I kind of hear throughout that. Griffin, what's your take?
So my take is similar to what he's saying, but I think that at more granular level, it's the simple paradigms under which we do a thing, right? That really determines how potent that outcome is. So when we look at things like, when we look at sort of the worlds of the opinions and the people who are teaching us and teaching our children, the main thing is that we need to be able to have a communication level and an emotional awareness level that's not being nurtured, right? So we talk about how to manage our money, and there's emphasis on how to solve problems, but we don't forget about the spirit. And we often don't want to include that because it offends our sensibilities. However, if one of the very paradigms of basic life is mind, body, spirit, that there needs to be a balance there as well. It's where our moral code comes from. It's how our characters developed and those decisions and consequences, etc. So when we consider the world under which, the paradigms under which we're doing a thing, and like Dion said, now asterisk, but in survival mode, what would you trim off? What would you cut? What lessons would you try to process and speed up? If you knew that in a moment after school, you would have to have the emotional awareness to be able to check your surroundings and pay attention to who's doing what and be able to accurately interpret whether or not they were going to harm you or if they like you, whether they were going to accept you or dismiss you, whether because you don't do a thing the way that their family paradigm, their constitution does it in their house, it's different. So it's foreign, it's uncultured almost. So in a world in which you try to create a curriculum that doesn't teach humans, POCs in general, but more specifically, because I can speak to that experience, when you create curriculums and catchphrases and programs, but you don't teach us how to have what's considered faith, that's important, because faith tells you to continue to believe even when you cannot see it. So this essential paradigm that adults know, you know, to hold on, it'll probably be better after you take a nap. You know, to hold your decision on giving a yes to someone until you think about it and let it sit. You know, to wait till you're at home and rested. You know what to do to recenter yourself, and you've had more time with yourself. So you know what to do when you're happy and how you can celebrate. You know what to do when you're sad and how to bring it back. You know what to do when you're mad. And you have sort of set in that and you're working on it, hopefully. Because if you are a growing individual, that means that you should never stop being able to change and move. However, that's not expressed in your curriculum and program to us. By the time it gets to us, those are the very basic skills we need. The environmental change. Money come any day and time, but we cannot get our time back. I can make more money all day, but I cannot get when my knees work like they work now. When my endurance is strong in my 30s and I can sit there and take red-eye flights from here to there to handle business, to become successful, to be charitable. That paradigm that's not being worked out, we understand, do gym, PE, keeps you healthy, jumping jacks, we understand, and you think about the creativity portion of it. We are kids who are blank slates. You raise us to have nap time, snacks, you love us, you forgive us for our mistakes. If we potty on ourselves, you don't holler at us, hopefully. You teach us with good intent. Everybody who comes around a kid in a perfect world has some type of good, they just see a kid and they light up. Then you put us in K. Remember, we start there. And you continue that. You teach us, you let us play with others, you introduce people to us, new friends that are happening. You give us a nap, you give us a snack, you keep it organic, you keep it cool. You're patient with us when we go potty in our pants. You don't blast us when we accidentally get the answer wrong. You correct us gently, right? And then you take us up into a higher middle school education where you completely rip that part away. We don't get naps no more. We also don't get to talk out of turn. We don't get to express opinions that are not scriptured in the book because you believe, you or the system that you've created believes that that is the most efficient way to get it done. And what you know about adult life is that there's always more than one way to skin a cat, ain't it, Brian? It's always more than one way to get a yes or to get something done. Dion has discovered that. And when you understand that, and you continue to pull away the creativity, and then if the same thing's happening at home, our safe spaces. Remember, now we're accountable. Now we have chores. Now we have allowance. Now we have to do homework. Now we're regimented. We have to go to sleep at a certain time. Not that program, not that tablet, and we don't understand. And we haven't been indoctrinated with all of the catchphrases to get you to understand what we mean quicker. So sometimes it comes out in a tantrum or an attitude or defensiveness. But sometimes we feel like we're being abandoned because we've been with you for every day for months. And then you drop us off for 8 hours plus after school with new people, new environments, new smells, new fit. And you drop us off. And so right now that you can afford to have a therapist, you understand that's possibly an abandonment issue. Now that you have the luxury in the healthcare to understand and unwind that you might have issues with your mom or your dad, or with unforgiveness, or with whatever the case may be. And when you untie those knots, it gives you what? Clearer vision. And vision is what we've never had any time working out. because it's part of faith. Faith and, those are things that are not there. Seeing the project done, seeing what the room will look like when I'm done designing it, starting from the blueprint. Before I break ground, I have to know what the design is. Before I pick a light fixture, Brian, I have to go back a step further and say, hey, electrician, I need you to put a box there because I want to put a light fixture in that room, even though it doesn't exist yet. So I need to not only know how to put a pretty light fixture up, it's a lot of other stuff I had to unravel with it in that management of it in order to be successful.
I'm hearing from both of you, it's fun to hear your journeys because you weave so much of your own journey into your analysis, and just emotions matter. That the journey, the emotional journey,
it's going to be tough.
Is going on in school,
and people are going to leave you, and this is the thing. If you're not training us at home, right? So it starts there, and you're not training us to be strong in case, hey, you're going to start to go to school. So I need you to understand what that means. That it's not that I'm going to leave you. I'm going to come back for you. Right. And if you're not dealing with that at home, and then you put us in school, and then you just keep ripping it away, it's 2021, and you wonder, those kids act like they ain't got no type of morals and characters. But the older generation was kind of responsible for training us. So Griffin, what does it say about you?
You remember when I punished you for doing something actually positive? I asked your forgiveness a couple of years ago, but I think it leads to a question. I think I was a decent youth worker most days, but one of my regrets was when you missed a flight to a field trip, and you on your own hopped a flight and caught up with us. And I took it as my legal liability head was like freaked out, and I punished you for that. And looking back on that, it was pretty amazing that a 17-year-old kid talked his way onto an airplane after he missed a flight and caught up. That just showed creativity, problem solving, perseverance, get-to-itness. And I punished you for that.
But I think
I understand. But here's the thing, my emotional awareness that you see, I understood though. And as a kid, if I didn't have that advanced learning that I had in the hood with my family and my parents being gone and being an orphan and being homeless and being mistreated and sleeping on lots of different couches, and knowing what's a good couch and a bad couch, and knowing what environment feels welcoming and what doesn't. All of those things now is what makes the price go up. That's what quality is, and that's what luxury is. The complexities in which it's derived in, and the amount of time somebody's willing to invest in a thing is what brings the value up.
And I think that's the what you said that we both kind of harp on is, and you highlighted it so well, is that the things that made you are not things that are given a proper valuation at any point in the scholastic process. And so, all of the things that allowed, Griffin to become successful, all of the things that allowed me to successfully, build a nonprofit were all of the things, even to this day, that the system tries to devalue. And so, it's that man, look, the amount of code switching and amount of emotional awareness and maturity that you spoke about, Griffin, is exactly, what sets us apart. And we're not taught that is luxury, and that is luxury. That is the thing that allows me to go into a room and people don't dismiss you because of your color, because of your age, because of your origin, because of where you come from. If we're all in a room equally and we can be ourselves, then learning can occur. But a lot of times, a lot more times than not, there are adverse effects to the way the way that we just keep, doing the same thing over and over. And the funny thing is, when you said that, Brian, initially I started out like that with the fridge, because I do have a liability insurer. You know what I mean? And so, he did his computer die?
Still going though. So.
Okay. Yeah. So the thing about that is, having a liability insurer, you start off like, okay, man, I don't want to do this, and but then after a while, you're like, nah, like, I'm here for a reason. And, if we really want to change everything that we don't like and everything that's not fair, then we have to make sure that whatever we're doing it for a reason. And whatever we're not doing it for a reason.
And I would even, challenge you to go further and to say that you need to think about why you think the way you think, because in it is where you then make sure that the paradigm or sort of the constitution that you're using to move throughout life, and you have to have one for yourself. You have to have one for each of your different businesses. And they have to be specific. They also have to have clear number goals. Things like that teaches you'll say, what do I need to do to work up to get to this number? But that mentality is, a part of your paradigm when you start to think about, okay, what's my character? Your character can't be developed without knowing what your brain is. Do we do that? But we don't do that over here. Do we argue? No, we don't argue like that. And if so, and mean it and be resolved in that, then you can be a little less harsh on how you get there. You stay committed to your decision, but you're flexible in your approach, because you cannot control life. That's one thing we know. You think you got a plan. You appreciate your business plan and all those good things. It's wonderful. But it generally works out the way, if you have faith. I believe, I'm a Christian, so I follow Christ. Because I think those principles for me are more aligned with just the basic principles of earth, of organic matter. Be good to your neighbors, you know what I'm saying? Have a consciousness, have a balance. And so a lot of times I don't look for other people to be equal to me. You could not, it's not possible, honestly. Because you weren't there with me. So I need you to be balanced and equitable for yourself, whatever your things are, because they're just different. I'm imperfect and mine are just different than yours.
Yeah.
Mine's just different than yours. Yeah. But I need you to do the work to keep them in check and keep them balanced. And I'm going to do the work. That's my commitment to you, that I'm going to do the work too. And I'm going to try to keep mine in check. I'm going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm going to.
Wrong with that.
But I hope that, that I have grace, you know what I'm saying? That I've developed enough grace with you over the other time that you don't hold it against me until I grow and learn to do better. That mentality right there will keep you from being angry with anybody. They just did a different part than you were.
Yep.
Right. And somebody let you live.
Yep.
Somebody let you live.
Yeah. Yep.
And so remember those people, those parents, those grandmas who knew and they let you live. Right. People who listened to your stories and just knew they didn't make sense and let you live.
Okay. Definitely.
So we the OGs now out here in our communities. And if we're going to lead people, lead them by letting them see, the process.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to hijack your point. I don't know if you can get back to it.
No. I appreciate that. And you're right. I think that's the beautiful thing is that, us being ourselves, you know what I mean? And especially when you have people who are aware of themselves, but are anchored in,
hey, welcome back, Brian. Sorry to interrupt.
I'm so glad you guys kept talking. I'm gonna be it's recorded. I can catch what you saw.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So I think, the biggest thing, Griff, I think, having people who are aware and comfortable, but still anchored in, humble understanding that they don't understand. And that's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what should keep you quiet.
Yeah.
And it should keep you meek, because when you realize how much you don't know.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yep. And I think that
I'm almost embarrassed. Hey, we lost Dion. He must have got a phone call. Oh, you're back. There you go, brother. Hi.
Yeah, no.
Go ahead.
That's the beauty of it. I think that the more I realized I didn't know, you know what I mean? Even to this day, like I woke up this morning and, looking at a few things, and I said, oh, that's interesting. And so I applied it, to, our communications model a little bit. And that's the beautiful thing. I think it's just, loving everybody and being me and having grace, because, that word is so funny that it's so prevalent and so important now. And it was not used coming up. For us, it was not used in Inglewood. It was not said and reinforced
unless you went to a great church.
Yeah, exactly.
They teach you about grace.
Yeah,
they teach you about mistakes and how you can be forgiven for them, and different things like that are what really helped me anchor myself. Like when I would be homeless or riding a train, I knew not to be listening to stuff that wasn't going to put my mind and my spirit aligned with what I'm trying to get out of. I'm already in hell. Right. I'm already in garbage. I'm already around undesirables and trash. This is not a situation I feel comfortable or is desirable. So at a bare minimum with this battery and this prepaid phone signal, I'm going to listen to something that's going to talk some positive, good stuff in my ear, because I cannot be in it and ingest it, because we're ingesting what's available in our food deserts. So I cannot have it in my surrounding, have it in my body, and have it in my mind. That's what you call disgruntled youth. They'll come up with terms, or violent, or unlearned, or no respect these days. They give it all type of terms, but that work that it takes to really unwind this ball and this yarn to figure out what it takes to be effective, you'd have to be yourself and be balanced in who you are. And I have to be myself and be balanced in who I am. And that's not equal, but that's also not competition, because my true level, once I found out being independent, I'm an only child. So being independent, and that's what people consider successful, that was easy for me. But what you come to realize as you grow and you age is that that's not really the highest level of success. I think the highest level of success is interdependency. Now go back in our archives, look at Mikva, watch how they use their partners to get different things done. Watch how they use their people who were good at certain things with certain groups, certain crowds, or certain issues. They categorized them and they depended on them to reach these people with the same mission, same goal that was set by Ab, who I love, Abner, Mikva, and Zoe. How they were committed to the decision of democracy is a verb, but they were flexible in their approach on how they got there. Yep. And that to me is a really good example of what life is. Take out the name, take out the individuals, and now look at your life, grid it, plan it, organize it. And you're going to find out that success is a lot more than just some money.
Yep.
But it helps.
Baby Chloe, I know you guys have gone on about 45 minutes more than I asked you, and I know how busy you are.
I'm sorry, Brian.
No, I'll try to put a bow on this. I think you guys are both geniuses, but I don't think your type of genius gets valued in our schools. But somehow, some way, you guys were unbeatable, and you wouldn't let your genius get denied. And so, we probably need to write books on that. We need to do a movie on it. But
I'll tell you, Brian, I'm in my season where I realized that